The courtroom fell into a sharp, stunned quiet as he strode forward with swagger. His designer suit was immaculate, a diamond watch catching the overhead lights with every movement, confidence practically dripping off him. He jabbed a finger toward Judge Judy, his voice loud and commanding, as if he owned the entire room. The audience visibly flinched. The bailiff subtly shifted, body tense and ready. Then the wealthy aggressor crossed a line so reckless the entire room reacted at once. Moments later, Judge Judy delivered a response so cold and decisive it crushed his confidence instantly. And before he could process it, he was already in handcuffs. The instant his finger sliced through the air toward Judge Judy, the room seemed to freeze. Even the fluorescent lights felt harsher, as if the space itself rejected the display of arrogance. He stood there in his tailored suit, every crease perfect, the material reflecting light like evidence against him. His diamond watch flashed sharply, little bursts of ego with each flicker. He wasn't just standing near the bench. He was claiming the space, acting as though rules didn't apply to him, like authority was something he could simply purchase. But Judge Judy remained completely unshaken. Her gaze lifted slowly, deliberately, cutting straight through his confidence with surgical precision. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean back. She simply held eye contact, letting silence do the work words didn't need to do. Behind him, people recoiled. A woman covered her mouth. Someone muttered under their breath in disbelief. The tension shifted into something heavier, watching a man used to control step directly into his own downfall. Across the room, the plaintiff stood at the opposite podium, gripping a folder tightly against his chest like protection. He was a quiet handyman, hands rough from work, the kind of person who apologized more than he argued. His eyes darted between Judge Judy and the man in front of her, unsure if he was witnessing justice or something about to spiral. The bailiff took a single measured step forward, not dramatic, not rushed. Just enough to signal that one more wrong move would trigger consequences money couldn't erase. But the arrogant man didn't notice any of it. His focus stayed locked on Judge Judy. "You think you can talk down to me?" he snapped, his voice echoing through the courtroom, as if sheer volume could reshape reality. "I'm not someone you can push around." A few gasps broke the silence. Someone shook their head, stunned by how far he'd gone. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, not sudden, not exaggerated, just enough for the light to catch her glasses, turning them into sharp, glinting reflections. Her voice came out low and controlled, but it carried weight that stiffened every spine in the room. "You are very close," she said, "to realizing just how wrong you are." He let out a short, dismissive scoff, the sound hollow against the tension building around him. He didn't notice the bailiff's shadow stretching closer. He didn't see the plaintiff's expression tighten. All he saw was Judge Judy, and arrogance blinded him to everything else, the way the silence thickened, the way the room seemed to brace itself. Then her hand moved toward the file on the bench. It was a small motion, subtle. It should have meant nothing. But somehow it felt like the turning point. The instant her fingers touched the folder, something shifted. His smirk crept back, slowly rebuilding from what should have already been shattered. It was the kind of expression worn by someone convinced the world always bends in their favor, confidence shaped over years of escaping consequences. He lifted his chin, adjusted his jacket, and took a small step back, pretending to show respect. But the arrogance never left him. Judge Judy tracked the movement calmly, her expression sharp and knowing. She had seen countless versions of him before, people who treated rules like suggestions, who believed limits applied to everyone else. But this one had turned entitlement into a performance. Behind him, the audience murmured again, quieter this time, sensing the balance of power shifting. The plaintiff tightened his grip on the folder. He had waited for this moment for a long time. Watching the man retreat into his act, he looked toward Judge Judy, silently asking if she could see through it. She could. Judge Judy gave a small nod toward the plaintiff. "Explain again," she said, "how this began." The man rolled his eyes dramatically, like a child being denied something trivial. Judge Judy didn't even glance at him. The plaintiff inhaled, steady but careful. "I did repair work on his rental properties," he began. "Fixing leaks, patching drywall. Jobs he said were urgent. He promised quick payment if I prioritized his work." The man let out a mocking sound. "I paid you enough." Judge Judy raised a single finger. "No, he speaks now." The room snapped back into silence. The plaintiff continued, his voice firmer now. "I completed the work." He kept pushing the payment further and further back. Then his behavior turned hostile, showing up at my workplace, shouting outside my house, acting like I had no idea who I was dealing with. A wave of discomfort moved through the audience. Judge Judy turned her attention to the man. "Earlier, you claimed the work was never completed." He straightened, that familiar smirk tightening like a shield. "He left things unfinished. I had to bring someone else in." The courtroom door opened softly. A woman entered and quietly took a seat in the back row, her hands clasped tightly together. Her posture revealed more than words ever could. Exhaustion, worry and something close to shame. She was older, dressed neatly but simply, her eyes locked on him. He noticed her immediately. His jaw tightened. Judge Judy caught it without missing a beat. "Is that your mother?" she asked, her tone calm, almost gentle. He stiffened. "She shouldn't be here." Judge Judy didn't break eye contact. "That may be exactly why she needs to be." His expression flickered. Just for a second, but it was enough. The plaintiff continued, presenting messages, records of missed payments, and photos showing damage that happened after he demanded what he was owed. Piece by piece, the polished image began to crack. Judge Judy closed the folder slowly, not as a final move, not yet, but enough to let the pressure build. Then she leaned forward slightly. "What you're calling confusion," she said quietly, "looks a lot more like a pattern." He swallowed, the confidence slipping for the first time. Someone wasn't falling for it. When Judge Judy said, "Let him finish," something shifted across his face. Subtle, almost invisible. But it revealed what unsettled him most, a story he couldn't steer. His smirk faded, his posture stiffened. For once his confidence didn't fit. It clung awkwardly, like something forced. The atmosphere in the courtroom changed with him. The plaintiff, still gripping his worn folder, looked up again. Encouraged by Judge Judy's steady, controlled tone, he continued. His voice shook, not from fear, but from everything he had held back finally coming out. "I tried to resolve it," he said. "I tried to handle it calmly, like adults should. But every time I mentioned the payment, he got louder, more aggressive. He started showing up at my job. Told my boss I was useless. Told neighbors I was trying to scam him." The man let out a sharp scoff. "That's not true. He has no proof." Judge Judy didn't even glance at him. "Do not interrupt again." Her voice wasn't loud, but it landed harder than a shout. The plaintiff opened his folder. The soft sound of paper shifting echoed through the silence. "I brought everything," he said. "Messages, photos, recordings." The man's head snapped toward the folder, his eyes narrowing, alert now, uneasy. He took a small step back, as if distance could erase what was inside. His fingers twitched near his diamond watch, once a symbol of control, now looking more like something weighing him down. Judge Judy gestured. "Start with the messages." The documents were handed over and passed along. In the silence that followed, the printed words carried more weight than anything spoken aloud. "Pay me when I feel like it." "You want trouble? I can give you trouble." "Do you even know who I am?" A ripple moved through the courtroom. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "You sent these?" "They were jokes," he said quickly. "He took them the wrong way." "Threats," Judge Judy corrected. "Here, not jokes. And meaning is defined by how they are received, not how you choose to explain them." His jaw tightened. "This is absurd." But the plaintiff wasn't finished. He slid forward a photograph, grainy but clear enough. It showed the man standing outside his house at night, fists clenched, posture tense. "I never asked him to come," the plaintiff said quietly. Judge Judy studied the image, then looked back at him. "Why were you at his home after midnight?" His eyes shifted. I just wanted to talk." His voice cracked. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. The first visible break. Judge Judy reached for the thick file on her bench, the same one she had touched earlier, the one he clearly didn't want opened. His reaction was immediate. He shifted his weight, swallowed hard, stared at the folder like it was something dangerous that had just been activated. The audience leaned in as she placed it firmly between them. "We're not done," she said. And the moment she opened it, he understood. His version of events was about to fall apart. The file landed with a weight far heavier than paper alone. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a solid, deliberate thud as the folder met the bench. But the sound carried, sending a subtle chill through the courtroom. The man tensed as it echoed, quiet yet final, like the closing beat of something he thought he controlled. Judge Judy rested her fingertips on the cover without opening it, her gaze fixed on him. He tried to hold eye contact. He couldn't. Across the room, the plaintiff gripped the edge of the podium, his knuckles pale. In the back row, the man's mother pressed her hand to her mouth, her breathing tight, as if she already sensed what was coming. Judge Judy finally spoke, her tone calm but cutting. "You told this court there was no security footage. You said you checked, that there were no cameras working that night." He swallowed hard, his throat tightening. "That's what I was told. How would I know?" Judge Judy didn't react. She opened the folder. The first page came into view, a printed still image with a clear timestamp. A porch, a light, a figure, one that looked unmistakably like him. His breath hitched, a small, involuntary sound escaping before he could stop it. Judge Judy tapped the corner of the page. "The property manager provided this after a records request. The camera is motion activated, and someone triggered it." A quiet wave passed through the audience. He shook his head quickly. "That's not me. The angle is bad. It could be anyone." She turned the page. Another image, closer this time, sharper. The diamond watch caught the porch light, the same one on his wrist now, shining like undeniable proof. His hand twitched. Instinctively, he moved to cover the watch, then stopped halfway, realizing how it looked. His shoulders stiffened, his breathing turning shallow. Another page, a sequence of images seconds apart. In each one he appeared more aggressive, moving forward, posture tense, unmistakably confrontational. The plaintiff looked away, his jaw tightening. Judge Judy's voice dropped further. You said you were never at his home late at night. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. You also said, she continued, that you only wanted to talk. Behind him his mother whispered something soft, almost pleading, but he didn't respond. Pride drowned it out. I just wanted him to finish the job, he managed. He kept delaying it. Judge Judy repeated, her tone slicing through the excuse. That doesn't explain why you were at his home near midnight. He swallowed again, sweat forming at his hairline. The room watched as the confidence he wore began to crack, the edges breaking apart under pressure. Judge Judy slid the printed images across the bench toward him. Look at them, she said quietly. All of them? His hand trembled as he reached out and touched the top page. The room seemed smaller as his eyes lowered, scanning each frame. It was like watching someone search for a version of themselves that no longer existed. Then he reached the final image. His breathing stopped. At the edge of the frame, barely visible, but unmistakable, was another figure. A shadow behind him. Someone he had never mentioned. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Even before anyone spoke, the shift was felt. Something deeper had just surfaced. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, studying the outline behind him. Tall still, positioned just a few steps back, not a trick of light a person. His reaction said everything. His pupils tightened, fingers curling, shoulders locking as if any movement might make the figure real again. He pulled the photo closer, holding it inches from his face, pretending to examine it, but really buying time, searching for an explanation that wasn't there. Judge Judy didn't rush him. She simply watched, letting the silence press in. Then she asked, softly but directly, "Who is the man behind you?" His jaw dropped before he could stop it. A flash of shock, fear, and regret. He recovered too quickly, and that alone gave him away. There is no one behind me," he stammered. "It's just a shadow, a camera glitch. That happens. The same glitch appears in multiple images." Judge Judy replied, "Shadows do not move independently from the person creating them." A murmur spread through the room. He inhaled sharply, chest rising too fast. "I don't know him. Whoever that is, it's not my concern." Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. "You've never seen him before." "I said I don't know him." The outburst snapped through the courtroom. The bailiff stepped forward slightly, grounding the tension, but Judge Judy remained composed. She pulled out another image and slid it forward. This one showed the shadowed figure holding something, rectangular, metallic. The plaintiff leaned in, squinting. "That looks like my toolbox." The man's eyes widened. No, that's not his. He must have dropped it. He lies about everything." His voice rose unevenly, cracking under pressure. Judge Judy cut through the noise instantly. "Stop." He froze mid-breath. "You told this court you were alone," she continued, steady and precise. "That you went there only to settle a disagreement." Her finger tapped the photo. "But this suggests you arrived with someone holding the plaintiff's property." "I didn't tell him to do anything." He blurted out, the words spilling too quickly. The room went still. Judge Judy leaned back slightly, folding her hands, her expression now colder, certainty replacing patience. "So," she said quietly, "you do know who he is." His mouth snapped shut. Too late. In the back row, his mother covered her face, her shoulders trembling. The plaintiff spoke softly, almost in disbelief. "You brought someone to intimidate me, didn't you?" He said nothing. There was nothing left that could help him. Judge Judy gestured toward the bailiff. "Bring that image closer." As the bailiff stepped forward, each footstep heavy against the floor, the man's composure collapsed completely. That shadow in the photo, the one behind him, held everything he had tried to keep hidden, and everyone in the room could feel it. The bailiff's shadow stretched ahead, reaching him before the man did. When it touched his polished shoes, he instinctively stepped back, just slightly, but enough for everyone to notice, the first real sign of fear. Judge Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Mr. Dalton," she said, using his name for the first time, "you contradict yourself every time you speak. So let's slow this down very slowly." Her tone was calm, controlled, the kind that left no room to escape. He swallowed hard, his throat tightening. The plaintiff stood quietly now, hands clasped, not satisfied, not smug, just relieved. For the first time, the truth wasn't struggling alone. Judge Judy nodded toward the photos. "You said you were alone. The footage shows otherwise. You claimed you never touched his property. Yet we see his toolbox in someone else's hands. You insisted you were there to talk, but your posture suggests something far more aggressive." She leaned back slightly. Help me understand. Why does your story keep falling apart? His lips parted, but no sound came out. His breathing turned uneven, first shallow, then erratic, as if each lie was collapsing before he could replace it. I said. He whispered. It was just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, Judge Judy replied, does not require backup. A low murmur spread through the courtroom. That was enough to snap him. You don't know what he did, he shouted. You don't know what I deal with. People try to take advantage of me all the time. People like who? Judge Judy asked calmly. He hesitated. She raised an eyebrow. He panicked. He yelled, pointing at the plaintiff. The same gesture he had used earlier, but now his finger trembled instead of commanding attention. The bailiff shifted slightly, a quiet warning. Judge Judy remained completely still. You are unraveling, Mr. Dalton, she said coolly. And it's not because anyone is exploiting you. It's because pressure reveals the truth. From the back, his mother whispered his name just once. But it was enough. Something inside him broke. Shame crept up his neck, coloring his face. For the first time, he looked small, like the confidence he wore was nothing more than a thin outer layer over something fragile. The plaintiff took a small step forward. All I wanted was to be paid for my work. I never wanted any of this. Judge Judy gave a slight nod. And yet here we are. Because intimidation was chosen over integrity. The man's eyes darted around the room, searching for an exit that didn't exist. Judge Judy folded her hands again. I'll ask you one last time, Mr. Dalton. Would you like to try telling the truth now? The question hung in the air, heavy, unmoving, impossible to ignore. His silence stretched, shaky and revealing. Then suddenly, he rushed to speak. I'm telling you everything, he blurted, his voice uneven, words tumbling out too fast to sound believable. But speed wasn't honesty. And Judge Judy knew it. He forced a smile, thin, strained, barely holding together. It sat on his face like something artificial, meant to hide the panic underneath. A smile that said everything was fine, while nothing inside him agreed. Judge Judy watched it without blinking. That, Judge Judy said evenly, was not an honest answer. Try again. He swallowed hard, the movement visible down his throat. He tried to steady himself, tried to regain control, but the room had already sensed it. His confidence wasn't just cracking anymore. It was slipping away. I thought he was cheating me, he snapped, pointing again at the plaintiff. Anyone would have done the same. I wasn't threatening him. I was just making sure he understood. The situation, Judge Judy repeated calmly, where you show up at his home near midnight with another man carrying his property. His smile flickered again, fainter now. I didn't mean. Look, I didn't tell him to scare anyone. He just misunderstood what we were doing. We, she echoed. His mouth shut instantly. The plaintiff stepped forward, voice quiet but firm. You were angry about the bill. You said I was too slow. Then you demanded a discount. When I refused, you started calling my boss. And that night you told me I'd regret standing my ground. The man's face flushed deep red. You twisted everything. No, Judge Judy corrected. He reported everything. She nodded toward the clerk. Replay the last few seconds. A hush fell as the monitor lit up. The footage played again. The shadowed figure stepped forward. The toolbox caught the porch light. Freeze. The image locked. The man flinched, not from the picture itself, but from what it revealed. Mr. Dalton, Judge Judy said, hands folded, what was the purpose of bringing this individual with you? I didn't bring him. He burst out, his voice cracking under pressure masked as anger. He just showed up. I didn't tell him to take anything. I didn't. You're raising your voice, she said calmly, which usually means you're losing your argument. A ripple of agreement moved through the room. Her gaze sharpened, her tone dropping lower. Look at me, Mr. Dalton. He did, and something in him gave way. Your associate's presence, the missing toolbox, the late-night visit, none of this suggests someone seeking resolution. It suggests someone seeking control. His forced smile disappeared completely. Now there was only fear. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but cutting. And control, Mr. Dalton, is slipping away from you. The courtroom held still. Because in those frozen seconds of footage, everything he had tried to hide was starting to surface. The monitor cast a cold glow across the room, almost pulsing with tension. People leaned forward, everyone. The audience, the bailiff. Even the plaintiff. They could feel it coming. Something final. Judge Judy gave a small nod. Play it again. Slowly the video rolled once more. The porch, the night air. The man stepping forward, his face tight with anger. Then the final moments slowed down. The figure behind him shifted, stepping fully into view. No longer just a shadow. The light revealed details. A jacket sleeve, a tattoo along the wrist, and the metallic shine of the plaintiff's toolbox in his grip. A collective inhale swept across the courtroom. Judge Judy raised a hand. Freeze it. The frame stopped, locked on the image of the toolbox lifted midair by the man's companion. The plaintiff closed his eyes briefly, a quiet wave of validation passing through him. But Mr. Dalton, he couldn't look away. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mr. Dalton, Judge Judy said, her tone firm and unshakable, explain why your associate is holding the plaintiff's property outside his home. He wasn't stealing it, the man stammered. He was just checking it. Judge Judy blinked once, slowly. Checking it, she repeated, disbelief cutting sharper than any insult. In the middle of the night, without permission, while accompanying you on what you described as a simple conversation. His hands tightened into fists, but they shook. The plaintiff stepped forward, emotion tightening his voice. That toolbox was damaged when I found it the next morning. Tools missing. Hinges broken. It looked like someone forced it open. Judge Judy turned back to him. Did you damage it? No, he snapped, the denial coming too quickly. I didn't touch it. I didn't tell him to do anything. He just went too far. So, Judge Judy said, folding her hands, your position is that you were there. You arranged the visit, but the actions of the man beside you have nothing to do with you. I didn't bring him, he insisted, but even he seemed to hear how empty it sounded. A quiet murmur passed through the room. In the back row, his mother lowered her head. The truth had weight now. Judge Judy leaned back slightly, her voice dropping so low that everyone leaned in to catch it. These images show more than dishonesty, Mr. Dalton. They show intent, preparation, coordination between you and this unidentified individual. Her gaze held him steady and unrelenting. Unless, she added, he acted entirely on his own, in which case we can simply ask him. The man froze. His lips parted. His knees seemed to weaken. Because suddenly the possibility became real. They could ask him. Judge Judy tapped the bench lightly. And it appears, she continued, may already be here. Color drained from his face. The entire courtroom went still. Then the door opened with a soft metallic click. Quiet, almost polite, yet louder than any argument that had filled the room before. A bailiff stepped in first, holding documents. Behind him came another officer carrying a sealed folder marked in red. The man saw it, and whatever color remained in his face vanished. Judge Judy didn't move. She simply watched him, calm and prepared, as if she had been expecting this moment all along. Mr. Dalton, she said, it appears your associate has already given a statement. A wave of murmurs spread instantly. He stumbled back a step, gripping the podium. A statement about what? The bailiff approached and handed over the sealed folder. Judge Judy opened it slowly, deliberately, each motion tightening the pressure in the room. She scanned the first page, her eyes narrowing slightly, not in anger but in disappointment. This, she said, is a sworn statement from the man seen behind you in the footage. He was detained earlier today on a separate intimidation complaint from another tenant. The plaintiff stared in shock. The man closed his eyes briefly as if trying to shut out reality. Judge Judy continued, her voice even. He states that you instructed him to accompany you that night, that you told him to bring something heavy later, identified as the plaintiff's toolbox. The man straightened abruptly. He's lying. He's just trying to save himself. Judge Judy raised one finger, a warning, a command and a boundary all at once. Do not raise your voice at me again. The room fell completely silent. She read on. Your associate also states that your intention was to frighten the handyman into lowering the bill. His words, not mine. Gasp broke out. The plaintiff's hand flew to his mouth. In the back row, his mother let out a shaky breath, her eyes filling with tears she could no longer hold back. The man shook his head rapidly. No, he's blaming me? I never said that. He twists everything. He's lying to protect himself. Judge Judy closed the folder. When she looked up, her expression carried a weight that made even the bailiff stand straighter. If he were lying, she said, his account would not align so precisely with the photographic evidence you denied existed. The man's breath hitched, a rough, broken sound that revealed everything unraveling inside him. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, her voice steady and grounded. People can twist words, Mr. Dalton, but they cannot distort the truth this consistently. He exhaled shakily, his chin trembling. He's just trying to ruin me. No, she replied firmly. He's trying to avoid the consequences you created. For both of you. Silence settled over the room, heavy and absolute. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. No charm, no confidence, no smirk left to hide behind, only fear, because for the first time in his life, the person he thought was his advantage had become a witness against him. Do you believe regret should wipe away blame, or does fairness require people to answer for what they've done no matter how they feel afterward? The statement file rested on the bench like something heavy no one wanted to touch. The courtroom seemed to close in, the air tightening, as if even the walls were leaning closer to watch a man who had always stood over others begin to fall apart. Mr. Dalton couldn't raise his head. For the first time since he walked in wearing confidence like armor, he didn't seem to know how to carry himself. His shoulders curled inward, his hands gripping the podium as if it were the only thing keeping him steady. Each breath came uneven, weaker than the last. Judge Judy observed him without anger, only clear, unwavering judgment. "Mr. Dalton," she said quietly, "look at me." He didn't respond. "Look," she repeated, softer this time. "At me." Slowly, almost painfully, he lifted his chin. His eyes shone not quite with tears, but with a raw, exposed fear, the kind that appears when someone realizes the image they've hidden behind for years has finally slipped beyond repair. I never meant to." "Stop," Judy said calmly. She didn't need volume. The silence itself carried enough weight. The plaintiff stepped forward slightly, swallowing hard. "I just wanted to do my job," he said. "I only wanted to be paid. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want to feel afraid." Mr. Dalton flinched, not at the words, but at the honesty in them. The contrast between that quiet sincerity and his own collapse was impossible to ignore. Judy set the statement aside and folded her hands. "You've built your entire identity," she said slowly, "on the idea that no one can challenge you, that people won't refuse you, that money or pressure can force outcomes in your favor." He shook his head quickly, but she continued, her voice low and precise. "But today you're facing consequences you can't run from. You can't purchase your way out of them. You can't dismiss them." The words landed harder than anything before. His breathing grew shallow, uneven. His grip on the podium tightened as if it might slip away. "Tell me," Judy said, leaning forward slightly. "Are you upset because you truly believe you're right, or because someone finally told you that you're wrong?" His mouth opened, then trembled. A small, broken sound escaped him. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Not with the statement hanging over him like judgment. Not with the footage exposing everything he tried to deny. Not with the plaintiff standing firm while he unraveled. The room fell into a deep, suffocating silence. Even the faintest sound seemed to disappear. Mr. Dalton's mother covered her face, her shoulders shaking as quiet sobs slipped through her fingers. The reality of who her son had become, and what had been ignored for too long, settled heavily around her. Judy exhaled slowly, not in anger, but in disappointment. "Mr. Dalton," she said, her voice cutting through the stillness, "this is the moment where you decide who you're going to be from here on out. Someone who hides behind falsehoods, or someone who finally confronts them." His eyes filled with helpless fear. Then, barely audible, he spoke. "I don't know how to fix this." The words hung there, stripped down, fragile, real. And in that moment, everyone in the courtroom understood he had finally reached his limit. The silence deepened, so complete that even the faint hum of the lights seemed to fade. Judy didn't speak right away. She allowed him to sit in the collapse of everything he had constructed, to feel it fully. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "Mr. Dalton, what are you actually afraid of? Losing money, or losing the person you pretend to be?" The question struck deeper than any accusation. His head lifted sharply, lips parting, but no answer came. Something shifted in the room, subtle but undeniable. He looked at her the way someone looks at a truth they've avoided for years. The arrogance was gone, the anger gone, the facade had cracked beyond repair. I just... He blinked quickly, breath catching. I didn't want to seem weak." The plaintiff watched him, surprise softening his expression. Even he hadn't expected this. Judy leaned in slightly, her tone steady, not harsh. "Weakness is refusing to take responsibility," she said. "Strength is telling the truth even when it costs you everything." "Strength," she said, "is choosing honesty even when it costs you everything." Mr. Dalton swallowed hard. Then, almost under his breath, he admitted, "I didn't think he'd actually feel afraid." Judge Judy kept her eyes on him, steady and unyielding. He couldn't hold that gaze. His eyes dropped and shame spread across his face like ink seeping through cloth. When he tried again, the arrogance was gone. No bravado, no showmanship, none of the confidence he had worn like armor. "Hey, he made me feel small," Dalton said. "He questioned me. He didn't just go along with what I said. And I needed to feel in control." The room tensed. His mother pressed her fingers against her temples. The plaintiff's eyes filled, not with sympathy but with a quiet, heavy understanding. Judy spoke softly. "Why does someone disagreeing with you feel like a personal attack?" His breathing faltered. He didn't want to answer, but there was nowhere left to hide. "Because," he said, his voice breaking, "I'm wrong more than I admit, and I don't know how to lose." The confession shook through him so visibly that even the bailiff shifted slightly, not out of alarm, but out of respect for what was unfolding. Judy gave a slow nod. "There it is." Dalton looked up, eyes reflecting a truth he had never intended to reveal. She held his gaze not with satisfaction, but with grounded calm. "I needed to hear that," she said, "because it changes everything." A quiet murmur moved through the courtroom. Dalton blinked, confused by her tone. She continued, her voice precise and steady. "Patterns like yours don't begin with one incident. They start long before that. He stiffened. What do you mean? Judy slid a thinner folder across the bench, one he clearly hadn't expected. Inside was a complaint filed years earlier. The details were strikingly similar to what had happened now. A complaint against him. His breath caught. The folder sat there, small and silent, yet heavy with the kind of truth that shifts everything around it. Dalton stared at it as if it might strike. His hands trembled openly now, no longer hidden behind expensive accessories or practiced composure. Judy didn't open it. She let him feel its weight first. Years ago, she began evenly, young man filed a report. He described being pressured, intimidated, and publicly humiliated by someone he worked for. Someone who believed they had the right to control him. Dalton's breathing hitched. The case never made it to my courtroom, she continued. The complaint was withdrawn before a hearing, but the report remained on record. She nudged the folder slightly closer. And the description, she said, matches you in every way that matters. The plaintiff straightened. The room went completely still. Dalton's mother lowered her hands, her eyes wide, filled with a painful recognition she could no longer avoid. Dalton reached toward the folder like it might burn him. His fingers hovered, then finally pressed down as he opened it with shaking hands. Inside, just a short report, a few photos, a single written statement. He read the first line and his posture collapsed. Judy watched him not with triumph but with quiet disappointment. Read it, she said, out loud. He swallowed hard. His voice cracked immediately. Hey, he said I yelled at him. Dalton read. That I ordered him around. That I told him I'd make sure he never worked again if he didn't do what I said. The plaintiff closed his eyes, hearing his own experience echoed in someone else's story. Dalton's breathing wavered. He said I made him feel small. His throat tightened. He said he didn't understand what he'd done wrong, just that I liked seeing him panic. A broken sound escaped his mother. Half gasp, half sob. Dalton stopped reading. He couldn't continue. He pressed his palm against his forehead, as if trying to force the memory back into whatever place he had buried it. Judy's voice softened, not gentle, but controlled. This was not a one-time incident, Mr. Dalton, she said. This is a pattern, a cycle, a choice you have made again and again whenever someone refuses to submit. Dalton lifted his gaze, his eyes glistening with something beyond tears, shame, realization, the painful moment when self-awareness finally breaks through. I thought I had changed, he whispered. The words shook as they left him. Judge Judy slowly shook her head. You didn't change, she said firmly. You simply moved on to people who didn't yet know what you were capable of. The plaintiff's breath caught. The audience leaned in, fully absorbed in the emotional collapse unfolding before them. Dalton's mother folded inward, her hands pressed tightly to her chest. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, he whispered. Judge Judy responded with quiet authority. That is precisely what makes it dangerous. The harm done without awareness, without reflection, until you are confronted with it. He looked again at the folder, then at the plaintiff, then at Judge Judy. For the first time there was no argument left in him, only truth. And only now did he begin to grasp the weight of what he had become. The file lay open in front of him, its pages still and exposed, like the truth refusing to move. For a long moment he said nothing. His lips trembled, but no words formed, like his voice was stuck between guilt and disbelief. His breathing came in uneven bursts, each one strained, as if pushing against years of denial. Judge Judy broke the silence, calm but unwavering. Mr. Dalton, she said, this is your final opportunity to speak without deflection, without excuses, without the protection you've wrapped around yourself. What do you have to say? Honestly. That word, honestly, pressed down on him like weight. He blinked hard, swallowing the tightness in his throat. The version of him that used to dominate rooms, the smirk, the confidence, the arrogance, was gone. What remained was someone stripped of performance, standing face to face with himself. I don't know how to begin, he whispered. Begin, Judy said simply, with the truth. The plaintiff shifted slightly, watching him with cautious empathy. Even the audience had gone still, not out of curiosity anymore, but because the room felt like it was witnessing a man confronting himself for the first time. Dalton inhaled shakily. I didn't think I was hurting people, he said. I thought I was just being firm, making sure no one crossed me. He winced at his own words. I grew up watching my father treat people like that, shouting at contractors, employees, strangers. I thought that was what authority looked like. Judy listened without interruption. But that's not an excuse, he added quickly, voice breaking. I used it as justification. I told myself I deserved respect even when I hadn't earned it. I thought if I was louder, I wouldn't feel small. His shoulders dropped, as though something inside him had finally given out. I've been lying to myself, he whispered, not just everyone else. The plaintiff lowered his head slightly, his expression softening. Because when truth finally shows up, he said quietly, it cuts through everything else. Dalton wiped at his face, frustrated by his own emotion. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. "Not because I was caught, but because I finally understand what I did." Judge Judy lifted a hand slightly. "An apology is not a sentence of words," she said. "It is a pattern of behavior, and your behavior has caused harm repeatedly." Dalton nodded, shame pulling his chin downward. His mother's quiet sob broke through the silence, fragile and breaking. He turned toward her. Seeing her tear-streaked face made him flinch, not in anger, but in regret. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he whispered. She shook her head gently. "Maybe this is exactly what needed to be seen." He turned back toward the bench, breathing heavier now, still trembling, but grounded in something more real than fear. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, tapping the folder. "This," she said, "is the truth you have avoided for years." Her gaze locked on him. "The question is whether you will keep running from it, or finally allow it to change you." Dalton's voice cracked. "I want to change." Judy didn't respond immediately. She let the silence hold it. Let the room feel the weight of that claim against everything that had just been revealed. Because what came next would decide whether his words held meaning, or collapsed under everything he had done. The courtroom felt heavier than before, as if every truth spoken had thickened the air itself into something impossible to ignore. Mr. Dalton stood at the podium, his shoulders curved inward, no longer the imposing figure who had entered with expensive confidence and a loud, commanding presence. The arrogance that once defined him had drained away completely, leaving behind someone who finally understood that every action casts a long shadow, and today he was standing inside his own. Judge Judy folded her hands, her expression calm but firm. Not anger, clarity, the kind shaped by evidence, truth, and unavoidable consequence. "Mr. Dalton," she began, "what we've seen today is not confusion or a lapse in judgment. It is a consistent pattern of intimidation, manipulation, and abuse of power." He flinched but stayed silent. "Your behavior toward this plaintiff, toward a former worker years ago, and toward others who have not yet come forward, follows the same thread. You escalate when challenged, you control when insecure, and when confronted, you deflect, deny, or attack." Each word landed with controlled precision. The plaintiff watched quietly, not with celebration, but with relief. Like a weight he had carried for too long was finally loosening its grip. Judge Judy continued steadily. "You damaged his property, you withheld payment. You turned a simple dispute into harassment. You brought someone to his home late at night, someone who has now admitted your intent was to intimidate him into lowering his demand." Dalton shut his eyes tightly, jaw trembling. In the back row, his mother cried softly, not defending him, but mourning what she had failed to see for years. Judge Judy lifted the photographs again, the toolbox, the shadowed figure, the midnight porch. "These images," she said, tapping them lightly, "are not just evidence. They are the result of decisions you made, your decisions." Dalton swallowed hard. The sound echoed in the still room. "It is time," she said, "for accountability." The bailiff stepped forward, steady, composed, prepared. Not aggressive, just ready. Dalton's breathing grew uneven. His chest rose and fell in short, broken movements. Judge Judy looked at him, firm but not without understanding. "You have caused real fear and real harm. And fear," she added, "is not something this court allows to be used as a tool." His eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. The plaintiff stood quietly, finally steady, no longer bracing himself against what might come next. Judge Judy placed her hand near the gavel, not striking it yet. "Before I deliver my ruling," she said, her voice dropping into unmistakable gravity, "understand this: consequences are not cruelty. They are correction." Dalton looked up at her, broken, exposed, stripped of everything he used to hide behind. Then she leaned forward slightly, holding the room in complete silence. "Given what has been established here today, I have further orders to issue." The bailiff straightened. Dalton froze. The entire courtroom leaned in, breath held. "Before judgment is finalized," she continued, "ask yourself this: can people truly change, or do they simply become better at hiding who they are?" No one moved. Not the audience. Not the plaintiff. Not Dalton. Even the air felt suspended. Judge Judy lowered her gaze to the file one final time, then closed it. A soft sound, quiet, controlled, but absolute. It echoed louder than anything spoken before it. "Mr. Dalton," she said, "you have caused fear, withheld payment, damaged property, lied, and involved another person in intimidation. You turned a civil matter into a pattern of harassment." He winced. His mother covered her face. The plaintiff stood still, no longer tense, just released. "You will repay the full amount owed," she continued. "You will compensate for the damaged property, and you will provide additional restitution for the emotional harm caused." Dalton nodded weakly, barely able to breathe. He expected nothing less. But she wasn't finished. "However," she said, her gaze locking onto him, "the intimidation, the late-night confrontation, the involvement of an accomplice, and your conduct in this courtroom require consequences beyond financial repayment. Dalton's breath caught sharply, his voice breaking. "Judge, please." Judge Judy lifted one hand. "This court does not function under fear," she said firmly, "and it does not reward intimidation. Your conduct today, your aggression, your dishonesty, and your refusal to respect procedure has crossed a serious line." The bailiff shifted slightly closer. Dalton's legs weakened. His fingers clung to the podium as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. "Therefore," Judge Judy continued, "I am referring your actions to courthouse security and local law enforcement for further review. They will decide whether charges of harassment, witness intimidation, and disorderly conduct are warranted." A wave of shocked murmurs spread through the courtroom. The plaintiff covered his mouth. Dalton's mother whispered in disbelief, "Oh my God." Judge Judy turned her gaze to the bailiff. "Bailiff, take Mr. Dalton into custody." Dalton's eyes widened. "Wait, no, please, I didn't." His words collapsed into a desperate plea, the first real one he had ever made. The bailiff approached calmly, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Turn around, sir." Dalton's expression broke completely. The same expensive watch he once displayed with pride caught the light as his hands were guided behind him. Metal clicked, handcuffs locked. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a final last cry. He didn't look defiant anymore. He didn't look angry, just hollow. A man finally facing the weight of everything he had built through control and intimidation. Judge Judy watched without celebration, without satisfaction, only certainty. "Mr. Dalton," she said quietly, "arrogance collapses quickly. Truth does not. But truth is the only thing that allows a person to rebuild." Dalton lowered his head, not in performance, but in realization. The plaintiff exhaled slowly, his shoulders loosening as months of fear finally began to release from his body. The bailiff guided Dalton toward the side exit. His steps were slower now, no confidence left in them, only consequence. As the door closed behind him, Judge Judy delivered the final words of the case. "Let this be understood clearly. Power without responsibility is nothing, and respect is never something that can be taken by force." The gavel struck once, the case ended, and justice settled into the room, quiet, firm, and absolute.